Welcome to another episode of the Most Serious Podcast. And today I have possibly, one of the most distinguished guests that we've had on the show, Mr. Vivek Atray. Thank you so much, first of all, for doing this and taking the time out from your busy schedule to just sit and have a conversation with me.
Thank you, Ribadaman. Nice of you to invite me. I'm already very enthused by this interaction. And two observations very quickly. If you were American, you would have said schedule instead of schedule.
Yeah.
And you're Indian, so schedule works better. And secondly, being distinguished is always a journey and not a destination. So we all learn from each other. So let's go.
How does that make you feel? Let's say whenever someone calls you, these fancy adjectives, and whenever you are addressed at someone who's, achieved a status in society, how does that really make you feel? Is it just a norm for you now?
No, it's neither of these. Actually, I had a fortunate childhood in the sense that my father was a distinguished IPS officer, and he was very well recognized, very respected, well respected, and I always saw that status, power that he saw. So as a family, and then I came into the service when he died, and I became an officer. So I saw a bit of that. So being from the civil services background, I don't think it was too much of a shock for me to be recognized in any way. So when I resigned and I became a speaker, now I travel across India. It is surprising sometimes when somebody comes up and says, "Sir, I saw you on the Ranveer show." So the first thing I'll tell them, I know that's another podcast we are talking about on your podcast, but
Yeah.
uh, but then it happens that then I'll say, okay, did you watch any other videos of mine? They say no. So that's disappointing. So, I don't want everyone to watch only the Ranveer show or the Ripu Daman show. I want them to watch my channel also and other things. So there's always a quest. So you never really, and if you are ambitious enough, it's good. And yes, it is not the norm. It's just that I think it's important for me to be recognized because then people listen to me and my message gets across more seamlessly because they recognize you, respect you in any way. Yeah, that helps.
Sir, I think sometimes I feel that personalities who have, let's say, served in any of the forces or have been such a huge part of Indian bureaucracy like you do, they are an embodiment of what India is truly like. Okay, so I just feel that the Indian expression of just the way of our lives and just the way we are, the culture, is very closely observed when you see people who's serving the nation in such proximity and in such, I would say, importance. So how does that, this transition that you see from the India that you've been observing from the last 20, 30 years and to the India that it's becoming, do you feel there's like a huge magnitude shift in just the way this country is shaping up to be?
Yeah, it's a very comprehensive question, but I think you're right about the forces and the services. I think they do represent India. And where does the police force come from, for example? The constable on the road is often laughed at, or he becomes an object of ridicule also, and everybody's scared of him. But behind his back, they will always be talking about him in funny ways. So he comes from society. He
Yeah.
represents society in many ways. The armed forces also, they're from across the uh, breadth of the land and the length of the land. Of course, barring a few states which are not very famous for sending army people to the army. But the other thing is that there are so many forces officers or defense services officers whom I respect myself. I think they truly represent India. And the civil services is similar. It's just that the army and the armed forces, they inspire a little more because of the way they are. And perhaps the challenges that a civil servant faces are different. So different. But then you asked about the magnitude of change and how India is evolving now. I think much of the same in terms of representation in the civil services and army and armed forces. Across India, people are coming and they represent society and its thinking. So there is change. There is definite change. I think one of the good things is that people are more aware, alert, and they understand what the career entails for them. In earlier times, people got admitted or people joined the army and spent 30 years there without really realizing what they were getting into, or the civil service or anything else. So there's more awareness. One of the things that is a drawback is that there is more impatience and less, as they say in Hindi, Urdu, they'll say tehrav. So that stability in the mind is missing. So there's always a constant clamor for more and better, and that may not be a good thing all the time.
So you made a couple of observations when you post my first sentence, and I think post this answer, I just was observing the way you constructed your answer. It's just that you have a. It's. I think I've observed this in people in general that what they think and versus what they speak, a lot of that gets lost in translation of from your mind to your tongue. But I just can see like you effectively speaking those words right out of hearing them in your mind. So how does that communication ability, like, of course, I think it would have fostered and developed through your experience over these years, but how do you enable that and how do you keep that so close to you that you're here present with me in this conversation and then when you do the next thing, then you're there?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think that is one of the things that I must humbly say that I'm good at. And I think it's because I used to read a lot of books in my childhood. I was fortunate to live in England for 3 years because my father was a police officer who was posted there on deputation. And IPS officers sometimes go on deputation to other countries. For 3 years, he was there, and I was a 7-year-old when we went. So I learned a lot of language and a lot of skill. And Hindi is just as important as English for my sake. For example, I make a lot of videos in Hindi communication, and I go on stage and speak a lot in Hindi, as well as I've spoken in Punjabi whenever it was required, though my Punjabi is quite terrible. But I also know a bit of French. So I think knowing languages is good, but communication, which is, like you said, which is seamless, which is not obstructed from the mind to the speech or the writing ability, I think it comes from a lot of reading, a lot of listening, and I think writing helps speaking. So if you are a writer, then you will be a better speaker. The vice versa may not be true. You may be a great speaker, but not a great writer. But I think if you write well, you will speak well, typically. The other thing is that I think I'm blessed with this communication ability. I've always been a communicator and got better with confidence. And today, I think yes, I'm able to switch from one to the other and communicate as effectively. I think it's very important to have empathy for the audience or the person you're talking to. So if I'm talking to a group of class 12 students, I need to be different from when I'm talking to the corporate managers or the CEOs or the vice chancellors. I'm addressing all these kinds of groups as principals also. Now I'm talking to you on a podcast, so I have to make it according to a podcast. So I will be, I think that is an ability which I'm blessed with. Yeah.
Sir, how was that transition from, because I feel getting into civil services in India is such an epitome of success, or so often branded as the best thing possibly you can do as an Indian citizen in terms of career ambition and things like that. How does life feel like post that era? So does it feel different? Does it feel? Do you miss those days sometimes? Do you miss that lack luster and you that all that charm or grace of power?
Yeah, this is a question I've answered many a time, but the thing is that I served for 24, 25 years in the civil services, so it's not like I resigned after 7 years or 8 years. Secondly, I think since I joined the state civil service and then got elevated to the IAS later, I wasn't going to become a chief secretary or a cabinet secretary because I didn't join the IAS directly. Thirdly, I think it is there is a time for everything. So I was very happy when I was there. I was doing my best and I had a good reputation, which still stays with me, and that goodwill stays with me. As regards luster, I think yes, the service has a lot of luster and a lot of in Punjab they say thuk, tor, the kind of status that you have, the stature that you have. But I personally feel that after a while, it depends on who you are rather than what the kursi or the seat that you adorn. So I personally think that you really need to build a name for yourself. And luckily for me, that name is with me and that respect, goodwill stays. And it is now 6.5 years since I resigned. And it is pretty much, the luster is pretty much there still. Yeah.
I think it has only increased, like your presence on online platforms and just your digital aura, I would say, is as good as anyone's. Because I feel when I was doing my due research for this episode, I was able to find so many resources to refer to. And so this question,
Yeah.
Mr. Vivek, I want to. So usually I ask questions which are very broadly audience specific, so like anyone can kind of plug them into their life and keep that advice. But I just want to ask this question for specifically for young men of India. I want to ask, what is something that you, because I see you as a man who's who's an inspiration. I see you as a man, you're an inspiration to other young men. I want to know that what is something that you would like to tell Indian young men of 17, 18, 19, how do they become better men and then become better citizens and in general serve the country better, and just are good men to hang out with and to be around in a society with.
Well, it's a very elevated question. I think many of the things that I am going to say, they apply to the young ladies as well, but we'll focus on young men since you asked that.
Yeah.
The youth is basically poised to take India forward, the world forward. I think the youth is today, when I travel, I'm going to Vellore, I'm going to Ooty, I go to various places. I've been to IIT Bombay, IIT Madras. I've been recently to BITS Pilani campus, Goa. So I go across the country and I meet the youth. I think they are poised, they are intelligent, they are super confident compared to earlier times, but they are being overloaded and they are overthinking. They have a lot of social media expectation, they have parental pressure, they have more pressure than any other generation before them. So I think the thing about being a good man or a good human being or an inspiration to others, basically you have to be yourself, but you have to develop those qualities that enable you to be a role model without really trying to be a role model. So you are basically to exemplify the qualities. And I often talk about the 7 C's, and I'll quickly say them here without explaining: courage, character, calmness, cheerfulness, compassion, contentment, and communication skills. So all these will make you a better human being, a better person, a better leader. We all have these in certain quantities, but we may not be perfect. Nobody's perfect. Even in communication, I mean, I learn a new word every week. It pops up somewhere. I say, I didn't know this word, and I'm surprised that there are still words in the English language which one doesn't know. I think even Mr. Tharoor might find one day that he found a word which he didn't know. So there is always something to learn. And if you have that attitude, it's good. So I think being inspiring or being a good person is a factor of the qualities that you have and the qualities that you display, not consciously, but just by being yourself. So it's a slightly philosophical answer, but basically what I mean is that you have to work on your inner castle, your inner mind, your being within. And if you work on your within realm, then what you are outside, what you exemplify, is going to be easier to. It's going to be easier if you worked hard on your inner castle to be that person who people look up to, or to be a role model for others.
I think there is so much to again unpack in that answer. Just and sometimes I feel, Mr. Vivek, it's whenever you have conversations with people who are certainly at set places in life and they've achieved a lot. Everyone has theories on success. I think everyone has something that worked for their favor and something that didn't, and you can cause and effect, and you can causation, and you can apply psychological hypothesis to them. But I sometimes I feel that failure and indicators of failures are overlooked when it comes to these conversations. And I want to ask this to you, in your experience, what is a clear indicator of failure and not success?
I think it's a very good question again. I think a clear indicator of failure is unhappiness, is basically disgruntlement with what you are and what you've done in life. And if you focus on the negatives of your life, then you're a failure, unfortunately. So basically, it's not that there is no one in the world who's a failure completely. There are parts of you which have failed, and parts of your life which have succeeded. So everybody is an incomplete, imperfect being. Now, if I focus on my negatives and my unhappiness and my jealous feelings and hatred and wanting to be in somebody else's shoes all the time, why couldn't I do that? Why did he get that? We all heard of the Arthur Ashe story where he says, when he was dying, he says, when I was Wimbledon champion, I never said to God, why is this happening to me? Because I was Wimbledon champion. What right do I have now to say, even when I'm dying? What right do I have to say to God that why is this happening to me? So we can't all be that gracious and balanced, but we try. And failure is something which basically comes from an attitude of criticism, of hatred, of jealousy. And even if, like, I very blatantly give the example of Mr. Donald Trump. I mean, you look at him, he's contesting the elections again. I've never seen the man smile. I've never seen him say kind words. I've never really seen him being empathetic. And I give the example of Barack Obama, who's just the opposite of him in personality. So you look at these two men, I would say very clearly on your podcast that Trump is a failure in my eyes and Barack Obama is a success. And they both adorn the same position.
Yeah. I think this is that clickbait part that will make a reel out of, and just reel people in to watch this episode.
And then I'll get a legal notice from Trump's advisor.
We'll wait for the right moment just after the election results are announced. Mr. Vivek, what keeps you? I know that you played cricket, and I am very active when it comes to sports. What keeps you still going? Because someone like you who's almost done everything there is to do in life, and for a Indian, I would say, like, you've done UPSC. Like, I've growing up in a middle class Indian family, there's always that looking up to nature for civil servants and people who serve for the country. There's always an inspiration in terms of when you find yourself achieving your dreams and then doing some, because you've done that, and then you are making such a huge social impact. But what's that missing piece that you still feel has to wake you up on a Thursday to do a podcast with someone like me who's 23 and trying to figure life out?
So firstly, the second part of your question is very good. So I think I still need to reach out to a lot of people through your podcast, through other podcasts, through my travel, through my speeches. There are many people who are suffering in the mind and they're not motivated. They are not inspired. They are living a listless life. They are living a life of worry. Their family situation, the conditions, the people around are making them overthink and worry and be scared. So I think they can achieve a lot more if they listen to podcasts like this one. I think if they are focused on the right writings, readings, videos, conversations, one coffee with me, and I think a lot of people would benefit, but I don't have time to have coffee with everyone. And I'm not the only one. There are maybe 10,000 people like me who are doing a good job, but we also are not enough. So it's very important to seek this source from the videos, the reels, the podcasts like yours. Secondly, what you said earlier, what keeps me going is basically much of the same. The youth inspire me and I want to inspire them. So I really feel strongly about them. I have two daughters. We have two daughters ourselves. And we really want to make them realize that they have a lot of potential and there's no need to be looking. So there's a saying by Paramahansa Yogananda, and he's the author of the autobiography of a yogi. And I always carry this book around, and here it is. And it's very famous. So he says that there is a beautiful room in which you are, and there's one black spot on the wall. And it's a tiny black spot. And it's a perfect room. Now, you can either look at the perfect room or you can keep focusing on the black spot on the wall. Sometimes that black spot or dark spot in your life may be bigger than the brightness in the room, but it is your choice. So I think it is very important for people to appreciate the happiness that they have in their lives. And what drives me is to bring that realization to people, to spread that cheerful vibe, to combat the forces of negativity. So a lot needs to be done by positive thinking, positive conversations. And I'm not criticizing, I don't criticize people. Only to my very closest friends, I might say what is my political affiliation or what I might want to criticize. But I don't go on stage, or I can't do that even as an IAS officer, I couldn't do that. But the thing is that even generally critical people are not, in my view, living a balanced life. So you call the complaint book in the train, you complain against someone on email. I mean, you made it your point to write a complaint every other day, or you are generally criticizing, bitching about people. I don't think it works well for you. Your own health suffers. So I am the one who has a lot to do even today to go very far to spread positivity in the society.
Sir, a little bit of a personal question, but I would definitely want to know this from someone who has such a calm demeanor. Is when, or you would have definitely faced multiple times situations like these where it would have been rattling, for any other individual, or where you would have been put under the bus, or you would have faced the heat, being an officer and serving, any jurisdiction. How does is there something practical that you can do you feel that you used to do was maybe natural to you, but you observed that is a good trait to maybe apply or imply in those situations where you feel that it's getting too much for you, a situation is too stressful for you to handle? How does one do that with grace and with all that calmness? Like, it could be at work, it could be personal life, it could be with friends, whatever.
So, we have to believe that we are a body, mind, and soul. We cannot concentrate only on the body and the mind. If you work on your mind alone and you say that, okay, I'm going to be calmer tomorrow, it doesn't work that way. So you have to work on various things to be calmer, to handle situations, as you said, with balance and calmness and fortitude. There are many situations where one person would buckle and the other is fine. Even in COVID times, we saw some pessimists and some stable people, were let's say not cynical. They were gently optimistic, but they were cautious. So you can say that they are cautiously optimistic. We all were going through a terrible time. But I would say that meditation has helped me a lot. And meditation has kept me balanced. So when I work on my soul through meditation, my mind and body also benefit. When I work on my physical fitness, then my mind and soul also benefit. Because my health is better, my mind is better. My mind is better, my physical health is also better. And if I'm feeding my mind the forces of negativity, anger, fear, worry, criticism, then my physical health suffers. So I think meditation and yoga and physical fitness are all linked. Meditation is not only just calming your thoughts, it is basically concentration on the Almighty, on God. That is a spiritual purpose, to find oneness with God. But the side benefit, or the minor benefit, I would say, is calmness. You're a calm person, you are a more balanced, stable person. And then even if you grow older, there is a glow on your face, even though I got very dark in Goa recently, and I am dark anyway. But people tell me you have a glow. I said it must be coming from meditation. So I think it's all due to working on your mind and body and soul consciously, and watching your thoughts, watching your reactions. And if you're in a tough situation, you know it will pass. It won't stay forever. But you have to watch yourself in that situation. How am I reacting? How am I responding? So lastly, in this point, there was a person who went to the heavenly gates. He died and he went up there to the heavens, and somebody there asked him, received, how was your life? He said it was good, but there was this person who kept bothering me. He kept troubling me a lot. So that person said, no, forget about him. What about your life? He said, no, but this person kept bothering me too much. So he says, we're not interested in that person bothering you. We are interested in how did you respond to that bothersome person? What was your reaction response like? And when that chap comes to us, then we'll ask him, why did you bother that person so much? So it's your life and you have to be the hero of your own life. So these things we learn from spirituality.
So this is very similar to your answer is like, is in line with one a reel only that I was seeing recently on Instagram, which was like, there was this podcast between, some host and Will Smith. And the host goes and asks Will Smith, what is the meaning of life? Okay. And Will Smith responds that just sit here with me and look at me for 30 seconds, or just don't speak for 30 seconds. And they're both sitting, and so 15 seconds pass by, the host is like looking here and there, and he's like, okay, what is he trying to do? And then Will Smith says, can you see yourself looking at me like this? Then you start to understand what is the meaning, like watching your thoughts, watching yourself doing those actions, realizing that you are not your thoughts. Because most of us in just the daily habit of life, we forget that we can observe our thoughts. That's what I think. I have not meditated a lot, but that's my only biggest takeaway whenever I'm able to sit and meditate for a consistent period in my life. that it allows you to detach yourself from your thoughts and your mind for a bit, and you can observe your mind and you can see that, okay, I'm not just this entity who is thinking these things. If I can observe them, then definitely I'm not my thoughts. I'm something greater than that. I think it's very in line with your meditative philosophy. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
sometimes find it hard to implement it on the daily level, maybe like you do, because of consistent practice. I think that's definitely a game changer once you realize
No,
that.
no, absolutely. You analyzed it well, and Will Smith's example is perfect in this. And you see, nobody is perfect, otherwise we won't be human. So we have a long way to go. But when you have meditated regularly, you have improved your chances of moving towards the goal of life, which is basically oneness with God, and which is to find happiness within. So that peace within, that happiness within, comes from various things. I have an example of the Golgappa man in my talks. I show his picture also at times, and he's a poor man who's smiling all the time. I crossed him many a time for many years in my official car, and I would wonder, why is this person smiling so much? He's so poor. And then I stopped the car one day after writing an article about him in the paper without telling him. And then I gave him that article, although he couldn't understand the language, and I read it out. I explained it to him. I had his Golgappas also after many, many years for the first time. And then I asked him, and he said, "Sir, I just have faith in God." So I realized that our attitude really matters. It's so much within. And what you said rightly is that when you don't meditate regularly, you will find it difficult. He probably prays to the Lord every day, and that is enough for him. But someone who's educated and who is comfortable in life should find time for going a step ahead from prayer to meditation. And there's a beautiful quote which is that prayer is when we talk to the Lord, and meditation is when the Lord talks to us. Now, what could be better than that? When you're meditating, you're receiving. So try meditation.
So what are your interests in like outside of all of the work that you do? What is something that helps you unwind?
So cricket is definitely there. I go for the nets even now, and I play some matches as well. And people don't expect me to play at the level I used to, but I still manage to play pretty well. And I'm fit that way, though I can be fitter. I wish I was a little more fit than I am right now. I was maybe 2 years, 3 years ago more fit, but I can be back to that. And the other thing that keeps me happy is my family and creative thinking. And the family, and we do a lot of creative activities together. Then music, of course, that is something which helps me unwind. And lastly, of course, Instagram helps you unwind, but to an extent. If you overuse it or if you overdo it, I learn a lot of things from Instagram which are fantastic. I never had an interest in orchestras and operas and things like that, but now I've started watching reels of those and even longer videos. I hear a lot of music which I never had heard before. So these are the things which help me to unwind.
Yeah, how do you not doom scroll? So like this, I think this is very relevant to my generation, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term of doom scrolling, but it's like when you are just mind-numbingly just scrolling, and you don't even like what you're seeing on reels, but you are just, because you're in that habit of scrolling, so you're just, your thumbs keep moving. How does like how do we effectively stop that? And as a generation, I'm sure you deal with a lot of, you've met with a lot of young folks, and that is something very consistently I've observed. Like even I, after trying my hand at meditation or whatnot, but it's just something very intuitive. It's very hard to fight that habit of not being conscious in what I'm doing. And maybe it's because of having everything so enabled, enabling impatience in us. We have Blinkit to get us things in. Sometimes I order, and before I get out of bed, the guy rings the bell. He's here in 6 minutes. So all of this is kind of shaping us to become a very impatient generation.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
No, I think you're right in many ways. And this reels part and scrolling and doom scrolling, I've heard of various things. I hadn't heard of the word doom in this context, but I can understand what you mean. So, India is reeling under reels is an article I wrote. And not only India, the world is reeling under reels. So, our minds are obsessed. And I know of an IIT I went to where the students said that I watch reels for 3 hours a day. Now, 3 hours a day or probably 3 hours a night. And that is something which is, it's definitely, it's doomsday if you do that for years. Because you are contaminating the energies of your mind. Your mind has a certain capacity. I would say that if you're disciplined enough, you're watching the worst reels possible, you are out of it in half an hour, you are disciplined enough to do that. And there are always reasons around you to distract yourself. So in our life, it's not like, 3 hours we are undisturbed. No, it doesn't happen like that. There will be the Zomato wala or the Blinkit wala, or there will be a call, or there will be something else. And there will be some pressing thing that you have to do. You have to switch off the light, for example, or the geyser or something. So these are little ideas to stop that scrolling process. When you get an interruption, I would say a practical tip is to stop scrolling after that. Because you were interrupted by another factor, don't go back to your scrolling. It's easier to avoid going back to that scrolling once you've got up. Don't you think so?
That's actually true. I mean, I will definitely implement this now. And now that I think of it, there are certainly triggers happening in my environment which kind of motivate me to get out of that doom scrolling. Like, let's say someone at my door, or let's say, my water bottle falls down. Then you think I'll pick it up later in a second, or you're hungry and you're just, like, okay, I'll go to the kitchen after 3 more scrolls, and then you forget that you're hungry.
Food is even more captivating than reels. You must agree. I mean, a hungry person will not like to watch reels because he wants ice cream, or he wants food, or he wants whatever. So I think food is a great idea. So splurge in a bit of chocolate or ice cream even to stop that reel.
Yeah.
And then, when you're coming back to your reels, just tell yourself that maybe first I should sort out this, or maybe I should watch some cricket on or some sport, or whatever is your interest, other interest. I think the practical tips will work. But definitely meditation and physical fitness and reading books, loving conversations with coffee or with anything else. I keep saying coffee. So we have to get out of our real fixation by also liking some other things, and they will then pull us out of reels.
Definitely, sir. I think one thing that that has just stuck by me, and there are, of course, certain moments in your life where you don't have to remember things that people said, and this is something that I'll definitely remember. Is that your indicator for failure, which is unhappiness? And now that I was thinking about it during this conversation as well, that it's just so natural to think of this ideology that failure is effectively unhappiness and disgruntled with your own life. If you have done everything and you're still that way, then it means that something went wrong and there's something still pending for you to do. I
This is
think
a
that is
very
something that I'll
important.
take up. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very important point. Again, I'll just repeat what you just summarized. So nobody is going to give you marks at the end of life for money or power or fame. It is not going to happen. You may be rich, or you may be richer. You may be rich, or you may be poorer. You may be anything. It doesn't matter. What you really take away is the state of your mind. And that state of mind is also going to go with you, they say, on the day you leave this earth. What is the status of your mind? What has it been over the years? Are you a person who's unhappy with himself because he did not want to do certain things and should have done them, or did certain things which shouldn't have been done? And then that mind is playing tricks and going on negative thinking, going on doing that. So I think it's very, very important at the end of the day, and when you sleep, to surrender certain things. And to the Lord, you become spiritual. You say, okay, Lord, now these bad things, these good things, they are yours now. So it's difficult when we are younger, and it's difficult for many people, even when they are 80 or 90. You need to find that gratitude and that surrender, and you need to find that peace within. Ultimately, the peace within will go with you, and that will help.
What a note to summarize this whole conversation. I am pretty sure that we'll try to get you back on another episode and to just have some more wisdom imparted. But thank you so much, sir, for taking out the time to do this episode. I mean, there's so much to discover, and there's so much to sit from this conversation that I personally will inculcate, and I hope the audience also feels the same way. Thank you so
No,
much.
I'm very glad that you invited me, Ripudaman, and I think your questions were very perceptive. You're very sharp and well-meaning in your demeanor, and you really mean to learn and share. So that's the idea for me as well. Thank you very much. I learned a couple of new things from you as well. All the best.
Thank you so much, sir.